So it's July 26th. We're in Seattle, Washington. We're heading over to go see Ben, who is a naturopath practicing in the Seattle area. He does house calls as well, but as a naturopath. We're going to be meeting him at his home, talk a little bit more about what he does, find out that he's actually a lineage of physicians, so he can give his perspectives on what he does as a naturopath and what his predecessors did as physicians. I believe his father was actually a emergency medicine physician, so it'll be interesting to see kind of from generation to generation what happened. Where did things change, and why did he choose to be a naturopath? His background is he's a biomechanical engineer, and something, it's part of this is discovering what brought him to where he is now. We don't know the factors, but even talking to him, this will be the first time we're meeting him, talking to him, it's a certain sense of, healthcare here in the U.S. doesn't really address the needs of patients. It's really just factory work. So obviously I keep talking about it over and over and over again, but it's important to hear from others and get their unique perspectives. Chief, good to see you. As well.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. No, This is fantastic. Beautiful day out.
Yes, absolutely.
In this place. This is fantastic.
All right, so I am Benjamin Magoun in Issaquah, Washington.
It's a beautiful day out.
It is,
right?
Very beautiful.
So this is very atypical for this area the rest of the year, right?
So we get about 5 or 6 good months where it stays pretty much like this all day, every day.
Yeah.
And then we get rain for basically December to about May.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit different from what we get out East Coast.
Humidity.
And that's one of the reasons is coming out and experiencing not only just the people, but also the environment.
Yes.
Because it has a direct impact on your health, right?
Yep.
Your mentality.
Absolutely.
And, we're really exploring these things, going on journeys with people to talk about things, get to know you, get to know the experience, share stories.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a naturopathic doctor, and it's kind of a long journey that got me there. But basically, I've been around healthcare, medicine my whole life. My dad was an ER doc. My mom was a nurse. I've got 2 sisters that are nurses. So very kind of medically oriented family.
Yeah.
And that made for an interesting childhood because we were talked openly about body fluids and death and dying, and all these things were kind of on the table at dinner. And we get stitches in the bathroom, splints in the bathroom. So that was kind of my first introduction to realize that healthcare or medicine in general isn't kind of limited by the walls of a hospital or a medical office or something like that. It's a very mobile skill set. Yeah, so from there, after high school, I became an EMT, worked on some search and rescue teams on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and eventually finished up a degree in biomedical engineering. So that was around 2008. So basically kind of jumped right into the whole recession. So finding a job in my field as a new graduate just wasn't an option.
Okay.
So started to explore, what I want to do with my life. Worked a couple jobs, just didn't find anything I was passionate about. So I started kind of seeking out a new passion. What's recession proof, but also how do I want to spend my time?
Yeah, certainly.
So I started thinking about medicine, and I had a lot of good resources to ask about and rely on. So they gave me some information about kind of where the field's going, where it's going, and just very honest about the current state of the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And they told me about how the reimbursements rates are getting lower, your workload is increasing, and the job satisfaction just isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So my dad actually suggested I look broader. There's a lot of different ways to practice medicine, so just see what's available.
Very much so. I mean, it's my thing is, if you just know how to care for people, it doesn't matter what the title is, and you're really dedicated to it, there's no question you can have an impact on people.
That's exactly it too. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're a healthcare provider or a person off the street. It's like we all have this responsibility to like look out for each other, to help people any way we can.
Very much so.
Yeah. So to get paid for it is just even better. To be able to help people and to find something you love doing. And to get compensated for it is the ideal situation.
But tell me a little bit more about your father. So what kind of physician was he?
Yeah, so he worked in the ER. Well, he was a family med doc, but he worked in the ER.
Okay.
And just because it kind of fit better into his, raising kids and things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, he still loved to do it.
Yeah.
And he encountered a naturopath in his journey too. So he ended up dealing with ulcerative colitis and kind of following the conventional treatment. It just continued to progress. And him, like most people, they start looking for other options, or at least kind of a last resort option. So he finds a naturopath, that way. And the naturopath is who did the test to figure out he had celiac disease, which is kind of set him up for the colitis, and helped him get off wheat. And from then on, it pretty much resolved.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So even as a physician, modern medicine kind of failed.
Right.
So he had to go to an alternative.
Yeah, and him, working in that field and like, being open to natural health as well as, the conventional system. I think that's kind of, you need that global perspective, but it certainly helps you realize these shortcomings of, the conventional care where it is right now. And when I was going to school, he used to tell people that, he was in my hometown where I grew up, and so people, my friends' parents, they'd run into him, ask him what I'm up to, and he'd always say, Ben's going to naturopathic medical school. He's going to be a real doctor.
Somebody who really cares. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's an advantage because the way medical education is in the United States now, it's really like they're filling this demand for supply of factory workers. Because healthcare has very much become, we only have 10 minutes with a patient. There's so much documentation on a computer that has to be entered. The almighty insurance companies who dictate the care constantly.
Yeah.
It's so far removed. So really medical education itself has been stripped of kind of, the curiosity, the scientific method, all of these things. And in, I would say, large regards, you didn't have that burden. Right? You learn because of curiosity.
Yes.
Of natural health.
Yes.
Right?
And it keeps that fire alive. For the reason everyone gets into healthcare is to do good and to help out people who are in need. But it's like that's what gets lost in the conventional system, because I mean, it's not right when it takes longer to change your oil than to diagnose a medical condition. And that's just the state of things. So now it's like most people who work in healthcare, they've lost that passion, and now it's just another job. Clock in, clock out, forget about it.
Yeah, and you can see that. You can see when the divorce rate, the addiction, the suicide rate, is incredibly high.
Yep.
And it's not getting any better. How can those who already have pathology treat people who then need to be healthy?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what I love about kind of natural medicine is like we try to explore the whole why instead of what. It's like doesn't matter what medical condition you have. I want to know why you got to that point and what we can do to eliminate those kind of those factors that are setting you up for the ill health, and then you can start to heal on your own. Instead of getting to the diagnosis and then following the algorithm to the medication you're supposed to be on.
But you're unique because you've also extended outside of like the brick and mortar. You've actually, similar to myself, you've understood that really health begins in the home, really begins with the person in the environment that they're in. Tell me a little bit more about how you came to that.
Yeah, so as far as offering care in the home, it just seems like, let me back up. So I learned about home health care, again, from my parents. So, they ran this free clinic in our town, small town, and, sometimes they do house calls for, bedridden patients or, elderly people that just couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And so I would tag along with them on some of these trips. And it was never, there was never any, financial gain, and it was just, people trying to help people.
Yeah.
And then that's what I saw is that they'd just go right to work. They would, my dad would be caring for the patient, my mom would be, clipping their toenails or vacuuming the floor, doing laundry, like whatever, just kind of whatever needed to be done.
Yeah.
And then I'd be there, I'd be mowing someone's lawn or, fixing a broken door or window,
Sure.
and just like, just this, helping out people, where they need it most, and it's at home. And that's what kind of opened my mind up to, serving people, at their house, and so I started to explore, why isn't that a thing anymore?
Yep.
So then you get back to this whole idea of, insurance reimbursements, and a doctor's time is worth, so little that they have to fit so many people in a day to make a living.
Yeah.
And that's the root cause of why there's no more home health care, or so little home health care. And it just didn't seem right, because it's like people want the service, they want the convenience, and it's a better way to connect with your patients as well.
Yeah. For me, it's about relationship.
Yeah.
Because part of being able to heal people is that they have to understand that I'm investing in them. It's not that I'm the doctor, right? It's that I'm taking my time, and you've invited me into your home, which is a sacred place, and you've invested in that, so I'm ready, I'm all in.
Yep.
So whatever we need to do, we're getting it done.
Exactly, and it changes the whole dynamic of the relationship, where they're both parties are completely invested in coming up with a workable solution.
Yeah, and there's peculiarities about it, because obviously if a patient comes to the clinic and it's a controlled environment, they may not always divulge everything about what's going on back home, either for a variety of reasons. But when it's all just right there in front of you, you can sneak in the fridge and you can open the, and it's right there, right? There's no hiding it.
Exactly.
And I think for myself, in addition to the relationship, it's being able to follow them along. Every time you go back is a new opportunity. And you can do so much more in one visit than you could do ever in a clinic, because of that disconnect,
That's right.
And I understand when people really want to try to make things fit a process and these things, but you remove that element, that humanistic quality that really connects you. And I don't want to be a physician who can't practice in the way that I'm connecting with people.
That's exactly right.
It can be exhausting. I'm sure there are times, well, tell me some stories about, we could talk all about the wonderful things, but.
Yeah, I mean, every interaction has its complications. And there's always the factors involved, it's getting there. The issue you're dealing with is way more complex than you thought it was going to be. So it's like, it's not always in and out. And so sometimes you end up, 3 hours and,
Yeah. So. And that's one of the difficulties, is that it's not recognized.
Yeah.
And people have to understand the value. If you are invested, they should be invested too, and they should be invested more in themselves.
Yep.
Understanding that there's a fundamental shift, a change. Everybody has their own perspectives on what health is, but if we can work together, then we can get there over time.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this whole, the whole pandemic has really kind of shifted this whole thinking about it as well, because it's like all of a sudden nobody wants to go to the doctor. They're even more kind of hesitant than they were before. So it seems like right now is a good opportunity to at least try to get the message out. Let people know that this is an option, and hopefully it'll grow from there.
Even for myself, for the pandemic, I'm a family physician, and I've had physician colleagues who were in practice, and it obliterated everything.
Right.
And they had to quickly shift and weren't prepared for.
Right.
Whereas you saw these companies that were opportunistic about it and said, we'll do telemedicine, and then they it really just is about the dollar.
Right.
I had plenty of calls during the pandemic with frantic patients that had already talked to telemedicine. Telemedicine was just like, well, that's all we can do for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay. healthcare has become so much of a business that it's not. It used to be that hospitals and clinics were owned by physicians.
Yeah.
Like if you go to DC and you ask of the 12,000 physicians, how many physicians do you think are independent in Washington, DC? Tell me.
Well, I know the public would assume, you know, it's a large proportion, but but unfortunately, you know, all these states are making laws against being a physician-owned facility, which is just, you know, criminal.
Yeah. In DC, there are only 4 independent physicians. Otherwise, they're owned by hospitals or larger practices.
Yeah.
And you can't open up your own clinic, you know, without tremendous expense, but also malpractice, hiring a whole team of people to deal with insurance. I mean, one of the first things when somebody comes to us is they ask, well, how much do you take in insurance and how much is this going to cost? And I'm like, we haven't even had a conversation yet.
Yeah.
Let's have the conversation first, and then we can figure out what makes the most sense. You know, I think it's disingenuous to hand over an insurance card and a $20 copay even before you've seen the physician,
Right.
or anybody. So it's, to me, it's so bizarre and foreign. But
I agree. And you know, that's all by design. You know, this whole idea of you know, these short visits and kind of like streamlining the decision-making process, basically taking the practitioner out of the equation. And you can drop anybody in and they can follow that same algorithm, come up with the same solution.
True.
And it's all about, you know, forecasting revenue for these companies.
Well, there'll be robots and avatars before we.
Right. But it's like the care is not even a consideration in that equation.
Yeah.
It's just
it's not sustainable is the other issue, because when we look at how much we spend per capita or gross domestic product here in the U.S. and you look at other countries, it's astronomical. You know, 5 times, 10 times sometimes more than other countries. You have to wonder. You know, it's just pure greed.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yep.
It's frustrating, and I try not to. I just hone in on, you know, doing what I do as a doc. You know, but you know, one of the features is wherever I go, I always have my little black bag that I take with me.
Yep.
And I have my own little tool sets. So as we're going around and meeting with others, we'll be meeting with massage therapists and other house call physicians, acupuncture, all these things. I'd love to see what's in your bag.
Definitely.
And get a sense of kind of like what you like to play with. And,
absolutely. I think I have a couple of unique tools.
I'm actually really curious to see what's in your bag.
Yeah,
so show me what's in your bag.
Okay. All right, so this is it. Not too heavy, you know, pretty easily portable. I think up top here, you know, the quick access, stethoscope,
standard stuff,
thermometer.
Standard issue thermometer. Okay.
You know, I'm doing the electronic cuff, but I don't love it. You know, it doesn't work in all scenarios. So I'm probably going to go back to the manual.
All right.
Then.
And it's pretty. How much does it weigh?
I never weighed it. Probably 12, 15, somewhere in there.
All right. Yeah, that's about my bag too.
Easy to shoulder.
Okay.
And then it just kind of opens up here. Like this.
Oh wow! Okay.
We got our, you know, our blood draw supplies.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
We got all these little individual bags here.
EpiPens up here.
Yeah,
that's good.
Quick access. You know, emergency stuff.
Yeah. A few meds.
Cord clamp. Should that come up?
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, yeah, these kind of individual compartments. So then we get our IV supplies.
Oh, okay, great. And you're doing a lot of IVs in the home?
Occasionally. Okay. So, you know, it's been kind of picked up. So we had these like heat waves come through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So people were dealing with like heat exhaustion.
Like that.
Yeah. Dehydration. So yeah, you know, occasionally.
Okay.
Next we have our ear, nose, throat. So, you know, otoscope, ophthalmoscope, that kind of thing.
All right. Excellent.
And then we have, this is our wound repair kit. So mostly just Band-Aids.
Okay. All right.
You know, some gauze, Xeroform.
Okay.
Dressings of assorted dressings.
Okay.
And then we have the lac repair kit. So, you know.
So you'll do the full. Oh wow. Okay. You'll do sutures right there.
Yep.
Excellent.
Got my
safety goggles
shades with the
with the lights. That's fantastic. I think I had those at one point, but I lost them.
Right,
So,
it's gonna happen.
they're
but-
little toys.
Yeah.
This is a guy's gear. This is no question. This is definitely a guy's bag.
Yeah,
And
then,
you've got for UTIs
Yep,
and
yep.
everything, urine
Yep.
collection and
Quick
culture.
cup, and then-
yeah. Okay.
you know, I think that's about it. Just some extra batteries, swabs.
Okay, yeah.
I keep a SAM splint. Have ever had to use it, but you know,
Never know.
black repair kit, and that's pretty much
Sweet.
it. Pretty.
Yeah. So then this is the only bag that you, unless you do IVs, you do.
Yeah,
you
I
bring
have
other
like
bags?
a mobile kind of IV pole that
Yeah.
I'll bring,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
other than that, the only things in the car
Hmm.
are that's really it.
And medications, do you bring much with you or
Not
not?
really.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Nasal decongestant and
Yeah.
some sumatriptan.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Sumatriptan, oh yeah,
Yep.
that can be a lifesaver.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
yeah, that's pretty much it. You know,
Fantastic.
nothing.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what people like to put in their bag. You know,
Right.
I can literally like bring my bag and close my eyes, put my hand in it, and grab out exactly what I need.
Yes,
So,
yes, that's exactly how
yeah.
it should be.
Because once you're moving around, you know, you get into a certain flow.
Right.
That's the one thing I would say that's very different from being in a clinic. Clinic is just very artificial.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
When you're out in the field, you have to be a lot more nimble, and so then you really depend on your tools being really at your disposal.
Exactly,
you know?
and you know, knowing where everything is quickly. You know, trying to set up some kind of a sterile field, and yeah.
What about others? You know, because I will work with pharmacies, I'll work with medical supply. Who else do you really count on to help you when you go out?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, pharmacy lab pickup is always a big one as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
but
Yeah, do you drop off the labs?
I do. I actually just I have it established at my house, and
okay.
and then
So-
just a drop box, and they just pick it up
That's
at the
fantastic.
front door.
Okay, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And so, as a naturopath, what would you be doing differently, or more so? You don't have to go through all the details, but just kind of, what is your first approach? What's your first thought when somebody has reached out to you for help, and then when you enter their home for the first time? What's your vibe?
Yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of people, you know, they don't seek out naturopathic medicine for the kind of urgent care situation. So typically, it's something something urgent. Migraines. Dehydration, lacerations, things like that. So that's kind of where it goes to initially, but that starts the conversation, and then we start to talk about all these other things. It's like, oh, diarrhea, you've had over 2 months, and what causes these migraines? What are the triggers? And then it gets into more kind of like personalized approach to how to prevent this from happening again.
And most of it is just having the opportunity to listen and to give the patient time to talk.
Yeah. Yes.
There are plenty of times where under the rush, the single most important thing you should have heard, they never had the opportunity to say it.
That's exactly right.
And that's like having your hands tied behind your back.
Yeah.
And it does take time to tease it out. I would say that it's different. Like if this is assembly line and all you're putting out is iPhones, then okay, it's an iPhone. But that's not what medicine is.
That's right.
That's not what caring for people and healing people.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the heart of it is just like, listen more, talk less, give them the opportunity to connect with you.
Especially when there are so many potentially unhealthy things that people can do, and usually it's gotten to a certain point where you have to kind of walk people back or orient them in a way. And I would say, like, if you had high blood pressure, I could give you medication that right now your pressure would come down. That's, you can demonstrate that. But when you talk about augmenting someone's health, that is a very subtle thing, and it's hard for people to really grasp unless they've committed to it. And I think that's one of the hardest problems is you have to have people who are committed. If I'm committed to helping you, I need you to be committed to having faith in what we're trying to do and accomplish so that then you can feel empowered. I don't like the sense of people being just passive. You come to the doctor, oh doctor, I have all these problems, heal me, fix me, the same I would imagine for you. You need that, otherwise it's not healthy.
And I'm kind of optimistic about where healthcare is going, because so many people have gone through the conventional system and been let down by just not getting answers for what their problem is. So now they've gone to the internet, they've gone to forums to try to find answers about what's going on, and and at least it may not be the best way to do it, but at least they're taking like a proactive role in their health.
Yes.
And it's a place to start, and then we can always work with that too, because at the end of the day, when you compare the safety of a hospital treatment or a clinic treatment versus a natural treatment, supplements or whatever, there's no comparison in the safety. It's like third leading cause of death in the U.S. is medical error, misjudgments, medication interactions, things like that. And then you compare that to people kind of experimenting with supplements, maybe 20 people a year.
Yeah.
So Dr. Google isn't the worst
No.
approach to fixing your issues.
Yeah. I mean, mine is very much a journey on my own health. I was pre-diabetic. My father had diabetes. Obesity as well was a concern on my part, largely because of medical school and not eating right, not getting good sleep, and all of those things. It added on, and then I found myself in a place where I was truly toxic. It really wasn't until I had faith in myself to be able to make changes, and then find my good friend Carlos, who's a personal trainer, and we worked on things slowly over time.
Yep.
And I can honestly say now I feel better than when I did in my 30s.
Yeah.
And I'm 53, but it's that commitment,
Yep.
And I would say for my own health, I'm an idiot, because it takes a certain habit to form to be able to actually make that change.
Yep.
And otherwise, it's very easy to get off track. Things get in the way every time, and then 10 years from now, you find yourself, and it's like, oh, I wish I had done that 10 years ago.
That's right.
It's the classic thing. And so coming with that perspective also to my patients is let them know, hey, I need help too, right? I'm not doing this all by my own.
Yeah.
It's other people who are, want me to be healthy.
Yep.
And I see the value of that.
That's an important point, though. It's like, the job is never done. It's like you never hit a point where you're like, that's it, I'm healthy. It's a constant process. It's like pulling weeds.
Yep.
It's like it's always there. You can just get ahead of it for long enough and hopefully maintain it.
And I'm one day older, and then there'll be something new.
Right.
That thing that wasn't aching is now aching.
Yeah.
And so that means being able to, and I would say that as I'm getting older, I'm appreciating getting older. I feel it.
Yeah.
And it is my life. It is my story from beginning to end. And the end is coming closer, not to be morbid, but it's an appreciation of it. And I would say also, as someone who's cared for people, that in the breath of their life, in death, to see that, I've been honored to have been part of that and experience it, so that I have my own understanding of it for myself.
Yes.
And patients who are on hospice and people who've passed from cancer and those things. Truly having been blessed with that experience. Otherwise, if you don't experience it, you've no idea.
Exactly.
And that's the part of this journey too, is to show these stories.
Yeah, and having that gratitude for having the opportunity to share that experience of someone going through whatever it is, end of life, is just it's honorable.
Yeah, and it's. Some would say it sounds depressing, and it's like, no, it's actually not.
Yeah.
It really, every time I'd walk out, I'd always feel invigorated with this sense of, I have a purpose, I have a mission, I have something, I have a reason to get up in the morning and go.
I gave them the best care I could, and the best care they could get. So,
always. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your father too, in his passing. My condolences, of course.
Thank you.
His transition.
Yeah. So his whole kind of journey was, so he got, ulcerative colitis was diagnosed when he was he just finished residency. So, new graduate, medical school, just had a lot going on as far as like stress, life stress too. So, new job, single father of 2 kids.
Wow.
And we just moved to a new town where he's going to start working. So it's like we didn't really have any support at the time. So we actually ended up we lived in the on-call room for a long time.
Really?
My dad, myself, and my brother.
Wow.
And and so we just kind of just ran around the hospital. The nursing staff was part of our babysitting clan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and eventually we moved into kind of hospital supplied housing, which was basically across the street. So same thing. Just just running around the hospital, tying up nurses at the nurses'
So it's in your
station.
DNA.
Yeah. But so he's going through all this, but also ulcerative colitis, and putting everything first. His kids, his job, and everything, and his health suffered for it.
Yeah.
And so the colitis progressed to cholangitis, and then he was basically forced to do something about it. And by that point, this was the early 90s. The only option back then is liver transplant.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any of these biologics or these these what the heck's mobs.
Yeah.
And
the ones that cost $15,000 a month.
Yeah, exactly. They'll at least they'll buy you some time while you figure it out.
Yeah.
But so he started. He as a doctor, he knew kind of what a life of a transplant recipient looks like, and it's not always great.
Yeah.
So he started looking for other options, and and then got on this whole idea of naturopath got him on the idea of celiac as a condition, and eventually got him off of that. So that opened his idea of what health can look like. And from then, he started exploring other options, got into acupuncture. During one of these kind of healthcare expansions back in 2000, people were pretty progressive at that time. So the hospital actually paid for him to get his acupuncture license. So he was able to do it through the hospital. And
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
it's
think you'd see that anymore.
Yeah, so that's it. It's like healthcare, it kind of goes through these recessions and these expansions, and and it's like the names kind of keep changing. They back in the 90s it was like they called it holistic medicine. Then in the 2000s, integrative medicine, and now they call it functional medicine. Yeah. But what's the principles stick? It makes an impact on the practitioners and it makes an impact on the patients, but the name keeps changing, and but what seems to be emerging now is basically what they call this personalized medicine. Yeah. And and that seems to be what people want, and it registers with people really well, because it's everybody, when they go to the doctor, they expect some type of personalized medicine to start with.
Not in modern medicine, but yeah.
But the patient does.
The patient expects it, but healthcare and the insurance companies don't appreciate.
Right.
That's not what you're paying them for.
Yeah.
I would say, by my nature, I'm always curious. So, in my background is I'm a scientist, so I'm always curious, and biochemistry is where I cut my teeth, and so I'm always curious about the individual, kind of what is it about them that makes them uniquely them, and being them, what do they uniquely need?
That's right.
And so I go through a lot with my clients to understand that. And it's a lot of laboratory testing, it's a lot of questions and understanding their backgrounds. I think more in terms of genomics we'll make some advancements, but we're just scratching the surface of it.
Yep.
But I do think epigenetics, all of these things intertwined will give us more opportunity. It's a question of if we take that opportunity.
Right. And I really hope, I'm pretty optimistic that we will, and I think as more people become aware of it, they're going to demand that. So so hopefully it'll grow from there. Yeah,
you just got a lot of marketing from the insurance and the pharmaceutical industry. It's hard to hear. That's one of the reasons for us to go on this journey, is to be able to give opportunity to voice those who would be drowned out by those who seek to really just profit off of this.
Right.
And as we continue to gather the momentum, the voices get louder, it becomes a cacophony over time.
Yep.
Right.
And I think that's the only way it's going to happen.
It's, and I'm old school punk rock, so if the music needs to be played loud, let's just play it loud.
Crank it to 11.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, or anything that you think that would be, ring a chord in somebody as an audience, as a viewer? And you could put it in this way, because this is a journey we've come here, and we can come back.
Yeah.
We can come, or if you make it out, so we meet up someplace, or if there's anything that you wanted to kind of share, or this is that opportunity.
Okay. I just want to start by showing my thanks to you for allowing me to have this opportunity, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's a very important job.
Thanks.
So thank you for doing it. And you were actually one of my early inspirations on the the whole house call aspect of things, because there just wasn't a lot of people doing it, and I eventually found your site, and I really liked how it was very, very kind of lighthearted. You know, it was you know, not what you get from a typical, you know, medical website. It was like, you know, trying to show a good time.
Yeah.
And bringing, you know, some joy back into medicine.
Yeah. You know, I'm, you know, by nature just kind of a goofy kind of, you know, practical joker. So
Yeah.
And I think even some of my earlier house call patients, there was one in particular, Miss Mayo, who used to just complain about my inability to crack a good joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've learned from her, Miss Mayo. Rest in peace. Yeah, you know, I would hope that over time, you know, we'll continue the relationship and keep things open. Certainly share, you know, more stories over time as we gather more people, develop a community for it, and really see what we can do with it.
Yeah.
I'm excited because this is kind of the first start of it, but it can go into so much more.
Absolutely.
And I would hope that the impact would be that everybody feels that they can have a voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, something has to change, and it's like, you know, everyone's just waiting for the ball to drop. You know, like what's going to be the big, you know, initiator.
Yeah, yeah. We'd love to be there and help whoever's dropping it to drop it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Really?
Yeah.
I wonder if there are any house call doctors in Iceland.
I haven't
Would
asked.
you should ask them and
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah,
and
I will.
all to go together.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Dude, that would be epic.
Yeah, that would. Oh, and on that same point, you know, we were talking about other connections and everything.
Yeah.
So one of my sisters, who's a nurse, she ended up doing some mission work in Rwanda, and there's a Methodist hospital over there. So she'd go back there every couple of years. Ended up marrying a Rwandan guy over
really?
there,
Wow.
and so during the wedding over there, we got to, you know, I got to kind of shadow in the hospital, see how they did things. Part of what they did was house calls as well.
Oh, yeah.
And what they were doing is, you know, they bring food, kind of check on people who are just kind of housebound, who didn't have the ability to get around. But as a source of protein, they would supply people with these little kits to raise your own hamsters, and then you just, you know, use the hamsters as your protein source.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you ever wanted to make your way over there to Rwanda, that might be.
Yeah, let's explore it. You
Yeah.
know, I take care. You have all the embassies right there.
Yeah.
In DC.
Yeah.
So if we make a connection, we would ultimately want to go through the embassy.
Excellent.
So if she, you know, we need to figure out a way to, as we bring more people into this, to organize like a community board.
Right.
So then people can just drop comments and let it naturally grow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for coming out. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And
Thanks.
anything else I can do, you know, with this
Yeah.
project, please let me know.
Just keep moving it forward.
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. To find any of this interesting, or more importantly, if you want to collaborate, check out the link below so that you can send us your comments, any stories you may have, anything. You know, we're happy to entertain it, and this is really about us going on a journey together.